Sustainable Development Goals. And these Sustainable Development Goals actually were developed by communities like ourselves. So about 10 years ago, there was a call to look for identifying priorities and what would be different community priorities that people in our communities, or through our local associations, would find important to fight for. And we did a series of small group discussions, focus groups, and then we put the information together and sent it to our national office, who then sent all of the national commentaries to our international office. So we played a role in the voice of shaping those 17 SDGs. And human trafficking falls under gender equity and is a part of that goal, one of the 17 goals. So we're happy tonight to talk about it, but we're even happier that we have more than just the talk, because as you'll hear throughout the evening, we really would like to take a grassroots initiative around it. Now, in addition to welcoming you, our next speaker on the program is Martha Ellert. And Martha was going to talk about AAUW. Now, unfortunately, she's not able to be with us tonight, so I have the lovely task to talk about AAUW. So this group was founded in 1881. It has 170,000 members at the current time and about 1,000 local branches. The membership is open to anyone, male or female, with an associate's degree or higher from an accredited institution. Now, AAUW is one of the world's largest sources of funding for graduate women and one of the largest scholarship programs for women in the world. It also brings and funds pioneering research on women, girls, and education. And their mission is to advance gender equity for women and girls through research, education, and advocacy. Now, our branch is about to celebrate 100 years. It was founded in 1927, and it's affiliated with AAUW Illinois. They present monthly programs open to the public from September through May, and they give 5 students away every year to women who are studying at SIU. So AAUW would like to welcome anyone who shares their values to join through special programs. And anybody who joins at one of the events can do so at a reduced rate for the first year. Martha Ellert at nsellert@aol.com can give you more information. Or if you're interested in joining, I think there's a sign-up sheet for members who attend, or for people who are attending tonight. So you can put your email down on that list, and Martha will be happy to contact you. So they're also on Facebook and Carbondale AAUW, and USA UNA is also on Facebook as well. So with that, I would like to turn over the podium to Jo Pritchard, who's the Program Vice President for AAUW, and she will introduce our guest speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Glad that we have a room full of people, because we do our planning in the summer and you never know what January will bring. So thank you so much for coming. And we also have a very nice group on Zoom, so we want to thank them also. Well, it's my privilege to introduce our speaker. I looked online and there was a wonderful long biography and all of her accomplishments. And then I got an email from her, and it was this big on what she wanted me to say. So she's modest. She's very modest. So we're honored to have her. Professor Shelly Page is from Houston, Texas, and the child of 2 educators. She attended Howard University in Washington, D.C., where she graduated cum laude and went on to Texas Tech Law. She has worked at Legal Aid and served as a criminal prosecutor and a staff attorney protecting students from teachers who sought to do them harm. She has been a law professor since 2004 and has worked in San Antonio, Texas, Knoxville, Tennessee, Orlando, Florida, and now here at SIU. She currently serves as the Director of Experiential Learning. She co-authored the textbook on human trafficking and has taught internationally in Austria. She has lectured and been a keynote speaker in many countries, including England, China, and Cape Town. She recently spoke at the Downstate Conference on Child Abuse. The discussions covered child sex trafficking and the connection between pornography and human trafficking. Professor Page just graduated from SIU with her second doctorate in education, higher administration. She maintained a 4-point throughout the program. Her dissertation discussed experiential learning in law school. She is married to her best friend, James, who is here tonight. Welcome, James. And has 2 sons and a new grandbaby, Amaya, just 8 weeks old. So let's welcome Professor Page.
So one thing I thought was, you're not here to learn who I am. I'm here to talk to you about what human trafficking is. So I just felt like it just was a waste of time to talk about all that stuff. So I wish I was here tonight to talk to you about learning how to quilt and how to knit and crochet, a fun, light topic. Unfortunately, I'm here to talk to you about human trafficking, and I have a timer going. So if you all see me still talking in an hour, just start slitting your throat or something. So I will know to be quiet. But let me tell you a little bit about why I got into it. So I was a criminal prosecutor in Austin, Texas. And after that, I became a stay-at-home mom for a little bit, and I worked after being a stay-at-home mom at a state agency in Texas. It is now the TEA, Texas Education Association, but at the time it was called the State Board for Educator Certification. You'd be surprised at how many teachers are having inappropriate sexual relationships with their students. So I was one of 4 attorneys for the entire state. So then one of my former professors from law school, Bill Pyatt, learned that I was still working, and I got in contact with him, and he asked me to come and visit at St. Mary's, be a visitor. So I went and I visited, which is where you're like a temporary law professor. While there, I was the first African-American woman on tenure track at St. Mary's Law School in San Antonio. And to this day, they've actually never tenured a Black female professor in the law school. So while working there, St. Mary's has a sister law school in Innsbruck, Austria. So Dean Pyatt came to me and said, Shelly, I need you to come teach. And we were like, what am I going to teach? So we combined the work I had done as a prosecutor with the work I had done at the state agency, and we came up with human trafficking. And y'all remember JonBenet Ramsey? Well, during this time, JonBenet Ramsey had been murdered. And of course, nobody knew what had happened to her. About 2 years after she had been murdered, a man was in Thailand, and he said he had killed her. And he was a former teacher. As it turns out, he was totally making it up. But it made us start to think about the dangers to children internationally. And there's this thing where child sex tourism. We have Americans who will travel abroad to hurt children. So they know that if they got caught here in America doing these things, bad things will happen to them. So many people will travel abroad to go. So Bill and I are having this discussion. So that's how we came up with me teaching international human rights, global sex trafficking. And I taught 2 semesters in Innsbruck doing that. So what made me start thinking about it at the time too, was a New York Times author. His name is Nicholas Kristof. Nicholas Kristof wrote a lot in the area of human trafficking. And so he wrote an article on a young lady who had been caught up in sex trafficking, and she was in a brothel in New York. And y'all, you see this video of her, but while you're watching the video, you only see like the left side of her face. And she's talking, and she's telling all of the horrors she'd have to perform, all these bad things that happened to her as a victim of trafficking. And she says that she got pregnant a number of times being trafficked. And the 3rd time she got pregnant, she asked the madam if she could have a couple days off. And these rudimentary abortions were being performed on her. Because she asked for a couple days off, the madam picked up a pin and stabbed her in her right eye. Oh. So then in this article that Nicholas Kristof, this video he's doing, You see the young lady turn full face to the camera, and you see she has no eye. So at this point, I'm probably in my late 20s, early 30s, and I'm thinking, how could I have lived this long and never heard of sex trafficking or human trafficking? Never heard of it. So that's when I just started pouring myself into it. The John Benet Ramsey thing happened. So that is when I started doing all this research. And I'm not gonna lie, it's heavy research. It is very sad, it is depressing. Some days I just think I have this argument with God and I ask him, why did you give this to me? But then God reminds me, all I'm asking you to do is talk about it. I'm asking you to learn about it. And I'm asking you to share it with people. So I've never lived this life, so how do I not stand up and tell you what is happening to people? And that is why, Joe, I don't need my bio read. You just need to, my name is Shelly. That's all you need to know. And I'm here to tell you, in this community, there are people that are being hurt. So y'all, we got in our car, and I've only lived here 3 years, and we drove towards Marion. When you get to, and I should know the name of the street, but I can't remember, but you could turn left to go to the casino, and there's a hotel right there. I think there's a Culver's. You with me?
Yeah.
Well, on the right-hand side is Cozy Cakes. Best bakery in town. Go get you some stuff. They got good bakery goods in there. Well, in that same parking lot, it's a massage parlor. So I go in here and I'm talking to the lady, I'm buying some goods and stuff, and Sonia's, who runs the bakery, please go and visit her bakery, it's so good. And so I'm gonna talk her, and I told her what I did, that I worked at SIU and human trafficking is my specialty. So the next time I go in, she says, Shelly, I gotta talk to you. What's going on? She suspects that something is happening at that bakery, at the massage parlor. And y'all, based on what she tells me, I agree. And so, without going into a whole lot of detail, pretty much every massage parlor in this area, there are people who stand next to us at the grocery store, who are husbands, our fathers, our brothers, our sons. They are patronizing these businesses. And the things that are happening in there is illegal. So I don't want you to think, oh, Shelly, that's happening in Chicago and New York and Houston and LA and Detroit. It is, but it's also happening right here in this city. And so you may be thinking, well, how is that possible? So we have people, and I'm gonna get to my slides. We have people who will get girls, and so the movie Taken with Liam Neeson has done a grave disservice to this field. Those movies really make you think, and then the other one that just came out, Sound of Freedom, God bless them. That's generally not how people are trafficked. Most people who are trafficked by people they know. And so we have people who take advantage of vulnerabilities of other people, and it's all about money. So I'm gonna stop talking, and I'm gonna talk to you about my slides. So some of my slides, and Jennifer, am I supposed to be clear? No, it's not working. Of course, yeah, it's not working. So we're gonna let Jennifer figure it out. So while she's doing that, let me ask you guys, I can't move. Let me ask you guys, who do you think, because I like to talk, where we have an exchange. Who do you think is more vulnerable to be trafficked? Let me hear some answers. Yes.
Homeless girls.
Homeless people, definitely. Why would homeless people be more likely to be trafficked? No family, nowhere to go, lack of resources. Who's looking for you if you're homeless? Right? So if we are a group of bad guys, we're a group of bad girls, what are we trying to get? Money. So Mayor, we are out looking for vulnerable people. We've already found some homeless people. Who else are we looking for? Runaways. Within 48 hours of a young person running away from home, a trafficker will find them. Within 48 hours. So we have runaways, we have homeless. Who else are we looking for? Students. So where am I hanging out? Bars, gyms, malls, playgrounds, places where the people who are vulnerable are hanging out. So I want you to keep that in mind. So human trafficking clearly is a violation of human rights. We also call it a public health crisis. It's a crime that involves compelling, or coercing a person to provide either labor or services or to engage in commercial sex acts. The United Nations says this is a crime based on exploitation. So we're looking at those vulnerabilities. All of these crimes though have one thing in common, and that's a loss of freedom. So here we have force, fraud, or coercion, and that is to obtain some type of labor or a commercial sex act. So every year we have millions of men, women, and children who are trafficked across the world, including right here in this country. And I have to say, including right here in Carbondale. I live in Murfreesboro. We can go to Marion, we can go to Prineville, we can go to Carterville, we can go to Heron. It is happening. Where there are people, it happens. So it doesn't matter how much money you have, what race you are, how much education you have, people are vulnerable. And I wanted to include the law here in Illinois. So it's where a person recruits, entices, harbors, transports another person intending or knowing that that person is going to be subject to involuntary servitude, and they benefit financially in a venture that has engaged, person has engaged in an act of involuntary servitude, right? So where does this happen? Wherever we have people. I'm gonna tell y'all, so before, one of the schools I worked at was in Knoxville, Tennessee. I worked at LMU's law school, Duncan School of Law. And so I got asked to speak at the University of Tennessee. And I show up, and in the room, I would say maybe about 50 students early in the morning. And it's young college students. They're just there to get their credit and get out. And I could just see the glazed over look. And I do my talk, and at the very end, a young lady kind of sheepishly raises her hand. And I'm just like, okay. I asked her what her question was. And she said, I actually don't have a question. I just want to tell my classmates, this is real. She said her best friend at the time was a junior at the University of Tennessee. And this particular friend is from Murfreesboro, Illinois, which is south of Chattanooga, south of Nashville. Tennessee, I'm sorry, south of Nashville, straight down. So right in smack in the middle of Tennessee. Totally rural, y'all. She said that her friend had been raped by her dad. So this is the friend talking about her own dad. Since she was about 8. When she reached the age of 15, Dad started selling her to the neighbors. Trafficking is real. And God loved taking and Liam Neeson. You generally are not going to fly to Paris and then get kidnapped and then forced into trafficking. That's usually not how it happens. So this can happen anywhere. And so remember we talked about who are the targets. Homeless, runaways, young people, women, female. Just being female makes you more vulnerable. Women, girls, boys, men. Being young, being poor, having some kind of abuse in your past, having gone through some kind of trauma. So let's talk about that. So Miss Ella, you have beautiful eyes. Thank you. Wow, you see how she just said thank you? What if she had said, you think my eyes are pretty? Well, I know she's got a self-esteem issue. I know something is missing there. And as a trafficker, I am looking for your vulnerability. Are you lacking money? Do you not have positive words being said to you at home? Do you just not believe that you're valuable? Whatever that thing is you're missing. You want some new jeans? I can take you get you some food. You need your hair done? You want some eyelashes? Whatever that thing is, I'm gonna figure it out later and I'm gonna give it to you. And then once I get that trust going, like foster children, the people who might have some mental disabilities, people who are undocumented, uneducated, once I have you trusting me, maybe I might even get you hooked on drugs. Now you're dependent upon me for money, for a place to sleep, for food, for drugs, for that value that you did not get from home. So I'm gonna pause here just for a minute. If you have children, grandchildren, children that you are in some kind of custody of, please tell them you love them. Tell them they're valuable. Tell them that you believe in them. Tell them the words that you know they need to hear, because if you don't, a predator will. Whatever you are not giving those children in the home, somebody else is filling that void. So traffickers use violence, manipulation, false promises of, if you come with me to Chicago, I can help you. You struggling with camera. You're not making a whole lot of money living in this city, girl. I can take you to Chicago and I will show you the world. Your mom and dad not treating you right. They don't let you have a TikTok account. They won't let you get on Facebook. Come with me. I'll get you a phone. I'll get you whatever you need. And y'all may be thinking, well, that wouldn't sell with me. That's because I haven't sat with you long enough to figure out what will sell with you. Because whatever that thing is, I will figure it out. Romantic relationship. You need a boy, girl, you sure are cute. You sure looking pretty, Miss Sarah. Let me hang out a little bit. Whatever those words are, that's what is going to come out of that trafficker's mouth. So these are some of the things that kind of hurt people. Language barriers. Fear of their traffickers. So if I have gotten 3 girls off of social media to come and meet me, maybe I sent them some cash out money, $100, $200, and now they're in my car, and I tell you what you have to do to get me money, and you don't, all I gotta do is sacrifice one of them, so the other 2 see, I'm not playing with you. I will break your fingers. I will cut off a fingernail. I will do whatever I have to do to put fear in you. And the other 2, so I'm not gonna damage your face because I need to sell you. I'm not gonna damage my product to the point where it hurts my wallet, but I'm gonna do enough to make sure that the other ones know. So fear of law enforcement. And so now ICE might come and get you, keeping victims from getting the help, making human trafficking a hidden crime. So traffickers look for people who are easy targets. They're going to use psychological and emotional vulnerability, economic hardship. You don't have money, I have money. Lack of social safety net, natural disasters. So a lot of times when you see like an earthquake or a hurricane or a tornado, tsunami happen in other countries, traffickers swoop in. So like what's happening in Ukraine right now, and I'm just picking Ukraine or Palestine. All a trafficker has to do is move in, pretend that they're a relative of a child. We have a case in Germany where a dad impregnated his daughters so much that they had children that he sold. Those children were never registered in any kind of census. So I don't know if you all heard about the case, I can't remember if it's Italy or France, of the man who raped his wife repeatedly on a video, and where was it at? France. He just was convicted. He raped her repeatedly, and he let all kinds of men come in and rape her as well. So that is human trafficking. So looking at how does political instability impact this? So the trauma that's caused by traffickers can be so great that many may not identify themselves as victims. This is my boyfriend. How dare you say that about me? So how do I get a prosecution going that's going to be successful if I don't have a victim who's willing to testify against her trafficker? She believes this is her dad. This is my dad. This is my boyfriend. So it makes it even more difficult to get prosecution. So here we have an act. It can be recruiting. So let me tell y'all, there was a young girl, she's in middle school, somewhere in Ohio, young African-American girl. She goes to school one Friday and everybody's talking about a party that's going to be happening. She comes home and she tells her mom and dad, I want to go to this party. Of course, mom and dad are like, you're crazy, you're not going to the party. No, you're not, you're in middle school, you're not going. She got so mad, she ran away from home. She ran away to the local McDonald's. She's sitting in this McDonald's crying, and this was on CNN, how I saw the story. And an elderly African-American lady walked up to her and she saw the vulnerability. She bought the little girl some food and she told her, you know what, baby, don't worry about that. I will take care of you. She sold that little girl to some traffickers. That little girl was trafficked out of a local Motel 8 for months. God love you, but the police don't always look for people of color like they do for other people. So this little girl languished for a long time. Her mother started looking, and at the time we had Craigslist and Backpage.com. Mom sees what she believes is her daughter. Mom sends mom's brother, the little girl's uncle, to go to the hotel. Now there's a line outside of the hotel. Uncle stands in the line. He gets to the room. He sees it is his niece. He tells her, take a deep breath. We're going to pretend we're in here doing something. And I'm going to try to get you some help. He got out and he got her some help. The whole story, y'all, she's only in middle school. When they found her, of course, they didn't show her face, they only showed the back of her head, but she had a wig on because they burned her scalp with cigarettes. So remember we talked about the fear and the intimidation? Maybe at some point she said, I'm not doing that. Or they used her as an example for the other girls. So for that lady who got the little girl in McDonald's, that's a crime. Just recruiting, yeah, I got you. Transferring, so if that lady did talk to her, just used her vehicle to transfer the little girl from the McDonald's to the Motel 8, that's a crime. Transportation, harboring, if she's hiding the little girl, or just receiving the little girl at the hotel. So thank God our laws have caught up with these crimes that are taking place, and now that's the act that we're talking about. So the means, it can be force. Do what I say. Get home. Fraud. I'm gonna help you get a good job. All you gotta do is come with me, or some form of coercion. So what's the purpose of this exploitation? Sexual exploitation, labor trafficking. We have that a lot in our communities because of the farms. So a lot of times, some of the workers may not be working through their own volition. It is a form of human trafficking. So slavery and similar practices, removal of organs. This is one we don't like to talk about a whole lot. In Atlanta, there was a young kid who was found rolled up in an exercise mat. He was in high school, he was a wrestler. When they found him, all of his organs had been removed. That's in Georgia, and other forms of exploitation. So one thing I want you to know, that force, fraud, and coercion only has to be shown if the person is over the age of 18. If you're under the age of 18, the state to go after you don't have to show force, fraud, or coercion. All we have to show is that the child was engaged in a commercial sexual act. And so y'all, that can be pretty much a lot. So during COVID kind of changed sex trafficking a little bit. So we're all cooped up in the house, we can't go anywhere. What do we all have access to though? The internet. So remember, we're bad guys. It's now COVID. How do we use the internet to still make money? We use our computer and we find kids and we get kids to do things on their computer while we watch, while we stream it. So if I tell you to take off your panties and masturbate, I tell you to take off your top and touch your breasts, even if you don't have breasts. That is how COVID kind of impacted sex trafficking. But under the age of 18, do not have to show force, fraud, or coercion. So force, use of physical restraint, serious physical harm, physical violence, rapes, beatings, physical confinement. That's what's usually used. Fraud, false promises about employment, or you're gonna be able to make all this money. Working conditions are gonna be excellent. And then coercion, threats of serious physical harm or physical constraint against a person, restraint. So the abuse or threat abuse of the legal process. You don't do what I tell you to do, I will call deportation. I will call ICE. That is part of that coercion. So 27 million people are believed to be enslaved today. Roughly 800,000 people trafficked across our borders every single year. It's estimated that 1.2 million children are trafficked for the purpose of sexual exploitation. So in this country, approximately 200,000 to 300,000 kids are at risk of being exploited every year. And again, we go back to like homeless children that have been through the foster care system, don't have a whole lot of people looking for them, connections to them. Maybe they have some trauma in their background. All of that makes them a whole lot more vulnerable to being in that number. So the average age of entry for a child, can anybody, not you from anybody confirm, anybody make a guess on the average age of entry for a child into sex trafficking? 12, 13. There are girls as young as 5 and 6 years old in this country. We also, though, guys, it doesn't have to be 5, so I don't know what's going on in Canada, but I've done a lot of research on cases in Canada. They will use babies who don't have teeth. You can imagine the things that you can do with the oral orifice when you don't have teeth. And so 5 and 6, you may be thinking it could be earlier than that. And when I tell you some of the things that we can do to one another, it is horrific. And these numbers come from the U.S. Department of Justice. So human trafficking, this is a little clue that I have to people. You guys have heard of the store DSW, the shoe store? So this is my little tip to help you remember. So the #1 criminal enterprise in the world is drugs. Makes more money criminally than anything else. Sex is #2, and it is quickly overtaking drugs, and then the last one is weapons. So the #1 is drugs, 2 is sex, sexual exploitation in whatever form, and then weapons. So human trafficking is the fastest growing illicit or illegal trade in the world. The money that's generated, $150 billion a year. 40.3 million people living as slaves worldwide. So the store right here, I'm just randomly picking on home goods. I really like home goods. I buy things from home goods. Those little trinkets that we get in there, a lot of them involve slave labor. That's how they're able to sell it to us for $2, for $3. So when I taught human trafficking before, I will have every student who's comfortable turn their back to the student behind them. And I'll ask the student behind them to look in the tag of the person in front of them. I've never had anybody say that it's made in America. So if we were to do this in this room, I'm willing to bet every single item we have on was made somewhere else. Maybe even Levi Strauss has sent out their stuff to other countries. So we have to ask ourselves, what am I doing to play a role in this? So if you have some time, there's a website called Slavery Footprint. If you go to that website, it will ask you how many diamonds you own, how much gold you have, do you own a digital device, how many do you own, slaveryfootprint.org. At the end of you answering their questions, what's in your medicine cabinet, do you own blue jeans, it will tell you how many slaves you own. And it really is kind of stark when you see it. So diamonds, unless you bought an ethically sourced diamond, it probably has some form of slave labor in the manufacturing of it. So when we talk about slaves living worldwide, that's what we're talking about. 5 times the population of Switzerland. So globally, the average cost of a slave is about $90. The U.S. accounts for almost half of global human trafficking, with the sex trafficking of minors accounting for the largest percentage of that number. Traffickers make almost $10 billion a year in this country. So guys, going back to that amount of money. Imagine the things, whatever I gotta do to get that money, that's what I'm gonna do. So when I tell you to get out and you don't bring me $3,000 by the morning, oh, it's gonna be hell to pay. Right? So that's something to think about. Average age, we talked about that. Traffickers are experts at identifying and seducing vulnerable girls and children. At first, they shower them with attention, offers of romance, a good life, food, shelter, clothing, gifts, drugs, whatever they need, and then they become their daddy or their boyfriend. Predators are masterful at identifying whatever the emotional or vulnerable need that person has. So every 2 minutes, a child is trafficked. I have my clock going, 27 minutes. How many is that every 2 minutes? That's 14. Is that right? Okay. Every 2 minutes. So just since I've been standing here talking, we're talking 14 children trafficked for the purpose of sexual exploitation in this country. And you can look at the Department of Justice for these numbers. Many are runaways, already have some kind of sexual abuse in their past, coming from some kind of troubled home. The life expectancy of a person once they enter this field is 7 years. So how do you think they die? Let's talk. Let me hear some answers. 7 years. What would happen that would make a person only last 7 years? Disease. They die from some communicable disease. What else? Drug overdose. And then probably the biggest yes. Suicide. Mental illness and its effects. How about you just straight get killed by your trafficker? Y'all, we have traffickers who will put a barcode on the back of the neck of their victims, on the back of their neck. So if you somehow escape my clutches, another trafficker will find you and let me know. We've got multiple cases where women have escaped and another pimp found them and got them back to the original pimp. So sometimes you may be in the store, and sometimes y'all, you'll see ladies with different, it may not be a barcode. It might be property of Tommy. It depends on what just like a cattle gets branded, it depends on what that person's brand is. But this community, they will find you. And that's what traffickers instill in people. So 7 years, I want you to remember that number. That's the general life expectancy. The average time it takes for a child to be picked up who runs away, anybody remember? 48 hours. Less than 2 days. It occurs in urban and rural communities. So I don't want to run out of time. So I have some news stories, and I'm happy to email this presentation to anybody. Those who exploit children gain access to kids through various means. Social media. Cases like these remind us that the serious dangers are no further away than that child's cell phone. So what I want you all to be thinking about, ladies, so good to see you. What I want y'all to be thinking about, you need to monitor your children, your grandchildren. This is how a predator gets into your house, right here. So there should be no such thing as passwords you don't know about. Grandma, get off of me. You're so mean. Well, you could be saving their life. So I want you to think about online safety, because that is where the danger is going to come from. And these are just examples, because there are others: TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, Kik, X, also called Twitter, OnlyFans. That's another one that people don't think about. I'm sorry about these graphics, y'all. I need to take this off. Okay, so does this happen in Southern Illinois? It does. I wouldn't, and this is a news story right here. If we had time, I would show it to you. Another one. All you gotta do is Google sex trafficking in Southern Illinois. It does happen. So this is a toll-free number, the Illinois Human Trafficking Hotline. I serve on a board based out of Chicago. We just got a report on Friday it's been a year in the making that looks at child trafficking in agriculture and child labor. So learn the red flags that may indicate trafficking. Ask follow-up questions. Human trafficking awareness, like you guys are doing right now. And so making it available for everybody in our community. So human trafficking indicators. While this is not a complete list, living with the employer, poor living conditions, multiple people in a very small space, inability to speak to people by themselves. Answers appear to be scripted or rehearsed. Employer is holding their identification. Signs of physical abuse. Submissive or they're fearful. Unpaid or paid little to nothing. And then they're under 18 and they're involved in prostitution. We don't even say a child prostitute. So that's slavery footprint I told you guys earlier about. Then we have a list on the U.S. Department of Labor that shows if you're trying to buy certain goods, these are some that are ethically sourced. And join a grassroots group, keep doing these kinds of presentations. I commend this organization for having this. I'm just honored to come and speak to you guys, and anything that you all need from me going forward, it's just a matter of picking up the phone and saying, Shelly, we need you. Now we got a test, because I am a law professor. So here we go. Average age of entry of a child into commercial sexual. 13. Get one on me, amigos. Very good. What is the life expectancy of a child after becoming commercially sexually active? 7 years. And that shouldn't just say child, that is anybody, pretty much anybody. Average time it takes a runaway to get stopped, 48 hours. Okay, you guys get an A. Thank you. I'm going to be here to answer any questions. Yes. This is my contact information. Thank you, Ms.
Very inspiring. Thank you. What an inspiring presentation. I sat here and I could not believe it when I heard it. It's a pleasure and an honor to bring to you our mayor, Mayor Carolin Harvey, who is responsible for proclaiming the city of Carbondale, the month of January, to be Human Trafficking Prevention Month. I want to let you know, I'm sure you all know, that Senator Harvey was selected for the 2024 Edgar Fellows Program, one of 41 leaders across Illinois. The program is an initiative by former Governor Jim Edgar to inspire collaboration in addressing the state's challenges. It's an executive leadership program at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. Human trafficking is a state challenge. It is also a challenge in our city of Carbondale. Now, I want to let you know just a little bit about how this came about. Last July, I happened to hear the UN Secretary General talk about human trafficking being such a problem, a global problem. And he said, what we need is an international treaty. And so I thought about it. And then he also made the comment that even though it's a global problem, it needs to be addressed in every community. That's when I decided to go and see our city attorney, Jamie Snyder, who's here in our audience, and I want to recognize him. And I went to him and I said, I plead with the city of Carbondale to consider passing a resolution declaring a month, January, a human trafficking month. And I waited and followed up with a letter, and I said in the letter, we have new mayor under the leadership of Carolin Harvey, we can do this, we can make this happen. And I said, we're only a city of under 25,000, and we can be a model for other cities in Illinois. And Attorney Snyder turned to me and said, only Illinois? What about being a model city for the whole United States? So I wrote him a letter, and he pursued it, he took the initiative, and it went all the way, and under our mayor, indeed, the proclamation was issued last January. And I am honored to present to you our mayor and thank her for her leadership.
Copies of the proclamation, so can you just take one and pass it down with it? Leave extras.
Thank you so much for taking your time to come.
Okay, I'll just present it. So this proclamation is declaring the month of January as Human Trafficking Prevention Month here in the city of Carbondale. We are just grateful for those of you who have concerns for this. And if you just keep it at the forefront of your minds, to always be aware that it's out there and just making people aware that it is there and know the signs of it to look for. Thank you.
No, I mean, to both of you, what do we do if we suspect that a child may be trafficked or very vulnerable? Who do we go to?
I would say contact the authorities.
The police department?
I would contact the police. So let me tell you guys, this is, you know where Rural King is? Right. So my husband and I last week, we were traveling on near there. We saw a little frog walking down the street, and it was in like 12 degrees that day. So I got out of the car and I got the little girl and we called 911. Traffickers are looking for every opportunity to find people to exploit. So in that kind of situation, contact the authorities. If you know of somebody personally that you think is being hurt, you can always go to the school if they're in school, but I would contact the authorities. And that it's their job to figure out if something is really happening, because we could be wrong. But I would say let the experts whose job it is do it. And then my husband is a retired police officer. He might have some ideas.
Yeah, just, if you report something, sometimes you have to be persistent because all officers don't do their jobs. So you may get someone who really don't want to do their job. So be persistent in reporting what you see.
Okay, along with that, there is DCFS, and here in Carbondale, we do have the Survivor Empowerment Center, which can assist with those type of things also.
So don't be afraid to not say something.
Speak up now instead of regretting it later.
Yes, yes. Do we have a hand? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm on the Jackson County Crime Stoppers Board, and I think this would be an excellent program for, if you would be willing to present that to us, would be second Tuesday of the month at 12:30.
You and I together. Yes, of course.
Yes, and the great thing about Crime Stoppers is, one, it can be anonymous,
Mm-hmm.
and two, it can be anonymous.
Miss Jan.
Okay, if you report it, can it be anonymous? I mean, so that you are protected from
Yes, yes, it can.
anything coming after you, you know?
It
Yeah,
can.
and I'm gonna tell you that I worked for DCFS for many, many years, and we get a lot of reports like these. And you're also anonymous when you report to DCFS. So.
What about the police station? They seem to always want your name.
You
Tell
can,
them you don't get it. You don't have
yeah,
to.
you can always just.
You have caller ID.
Oh, yeah.
I think law enforcement just wants to know that this is a legitimate complaint and that people are not weaponizing 911 or I'm mad at my neighbor, I'm gonna say she's abusing her kids. The police, law enforcement, their resources are stretched thin. So they don't want to be out there investigating something that's not genuine. So we want to make sure that if it's a suspicion, that it really is a suspicion based on facts.
As a former prosecutor, I will say this, anonymous is nice, but when I have to take the case to trial, I need people. I cannot prosecute a case on an anonymous tip. I have to have evidence, and witnesses is what juries want to have. I can have all the circumstantial evidence I can get, but without direct evidence from a witness, I would lose every time.
Yes, I agree with that. So in order to get a conviction, you have to have somebody who says, this is what I saw, this is what I smelled, I tasted, all of that.
Now, when you saw this little, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yes.
No, your hand was up first.
When you saw this little girl on the road, you didn't pick her up yourself. You called 911 and
Yes.
said, I see this little girl.
Yes, I got out and it was snowing and the snow had just started and I got her hand and I asked her her name, where she was coming from, and it was right across from the fire department. So a fireman was already outside on the phone and I just walked him over to her. But if I'm a predator, because I understand she's gotten out a couple other times, I'm looking for these kinds of little girls, these kinds of people who are more vulnerable. Maybe parents are sleeping or sleep hard or whatever the case is. They have a little girl who runs away a lot. I know I can make y'all remember the numbers. I can make a lot of money off of this little girl. Yes, ma'am.
And on that also, we see posters of kids who are missing,
Yes.
who are never found. Where do you think a lot of them end up?
Yes, right here. It will come right here.
My question was, the work that you've done, can you comment on the organization and the institution of trafficking? Because I'm wondering if it's comparable to drug trafficking, because I understand that a lot of times it goes hand in hand, and the people that are involved in trafficking drugs then get into trafficking humans because it's more profitable. Can you comment on like the hierarchy and how organized these crime rings are? Are they? Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm trying to.
Yes, and so based on my research, they are very organized. And I also will tell you that, how many times can I sell a pound of cocaine? One time. How many times can I sell a 15-year-old? until she's dead, until she is no longer serviceable. So there's definitely more money in people. How many times can I sell an AK-47? One time. So there's money there. Also, it is very difficult to get a conviction in this area. A lot of times we have people who have been victimized, who don't speak the language, who have mental issues, or that trauma is so deep, they are not willing to testify. We even have a U visa to T visa where we say, if you cooperate and help us get a conviction, we'll put you on the path to citizenship. Sometimes that's not even enough. So it is very difficult to get convictions. So what does that mean? That means traffickers know better to be in sex trafficking, human trafficking, than drug trafficking or weapons trafficking. But I would say it is organized. So when you think about like trafficking coming from Russia, I can't comment on the international aspect of it, but I would tell you they are organized. And even if we just have one or two guys, and I'm just using guys, who have a ring of, let's say, 8 to 10 girls that they have, trust me, they're organized. So how social media is used, they will get on TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, and they will show, these are my girls. This is when I'm coming through Carbondale. This is where we're meeting. And y'all, there are people who show up, who buy these girls, who show up at the hotels. So you pay more if the girl comes to you. You pay a little less if you're going to the hotel. So who are we? We need to look at the demand for this. It's people in our community. If I'm selling you cotton candy and you're not buying my cotton candy, I'm gonna stop selling you cotton candy. I'm gonna sell popcorn. Why is sex selling in Carbondale? So we need to look at ourselves. We need to look at it. What is it about us that bakery, the bakery owner could say to me, Shelly, this is a problem. And y'all, she has told me that there are men who travel in old farmer looking trucks, park far away from the massage parlor and walk. And I told her, don't do this. She'll walk out and say, hey, what are you doing? I see your truck over there. Don't park in front of my business. Go park in front of the massage parlor. That's how frustrated she is. This is really happening right here in our community. So the question is, our brothers, our husbands, our fathers, our sons, our uncles, why are they buying girls and women? So we even putting the traffickers in perspective. What is it about us that we can make billions of dollars hurting one another? So go home and look at that, and let's, have a real talk with ourselves. Like, how could this be selling? Okay, I'm gonna be quiet. I hope I answered your question. Sorry, Mayor.
Oh, no,
Let me step back.
this question is for you also.
Okay. I know that we're talking about Southern Illinois, but I also know that we have lots of kids on the board. What's happening to those kids, and aren't the traffickers there for them? And if so, what's happening to us? How do we protect those children, and are they protected? I don't see how they could be based upon the information that we get from that. So what happens to the United States when we're looking at, we know that this is going on. We've taken some kids and put them there, so
Yes, and it's unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for you, because the answer really is we are not adequately protecting those children. We're not adequately protecting American children. So the children that are brought here illegally or are on the borders, they're definitely far more vulnerable, because many of them, again, don't speak the language, or they're not here documented. They may have a fear of law enforcement. So we like to live a comfortable life. So we have to ask ourselves, would I rather pay $20 for this shirt versus $50 for the shirt? So we have to ask ourselves, when we go to the store and we buy that pineapple and it's $2.49, would we rather pay $4 when we know nobody has been exploited to get us that pineapple? So we play a role in this. We really do. People would not be exploited if we were not the ones using them. So we have to take a look at ourselves and say, what can we do differently?
Dr. Prashar.
I'm sorry, Professor.
You're good, you're good.
I have a foundation for abused children, and Joe and I And we provide training for people that work in child abuse, neglect, and abandonment. There are over 30 social service agencies that we work with. Your presentation was so compelling, but do you do like 4-hour workshops and things like that for, say, 50 social service workers that really need to hear this, where you get a little more in depth than you can in a half-hour presentation or something?
Let me tell you, so I was asked by SIH to do that. The negative is, once I educate you, where do the people go? Where do the victims go? And unfortunately, in our community, we don't have a shelter specifically for this. So SIH came back and said, Shelly, as much as valuable as the information is you have to present, just learning about it does us no good. So what we need to be doing is coming up with resources to help people that we find and bring out of the trade. A place with beds, a place with training, a place that helps them get acclimated into society, a place that provides mental health, a place that provides, hospital services, whatever medical facilities they may need. That's where we are lacking. So we had Project 61, I think it was called.
We're pretty good about following up once our people get the training.
Okay. But let's say we find a victim who is trafficked and police officer Page gets her. Where are we taking her? That's the question. And once we take her to that place, what help, what resources, social services do we give her? I'm just saying her, guys, it could be anybody. Because men are vulnerable as well, males are as well, especially transgender people. So I don't want it to be like Shelly only talked about females. But what do we do then? And so the resource, and I talked to Carbondale Police Department before, we don't have a whole lot of resources for this.
Our foundation is 25 years old. I knew nothing about human trafficking.
I can tell you trafficking thrives in ignorance and silence and in the dark. And it's presentations like this, Joe. Joe was on me all the time, writing me, Shelly, are you coming? Are you coming? Are you coming? It's presentations like this where, so now you have information, Miss, you can tell other people. You can go and you can share it. That's how we get it out. And then we can do some grassroots efforts to try to make it more real when we get facilities. Yes, ma'am.
When we look at this group that's here,
Yes.
maybe 1 or 2 people in here might have some babies. Most of us are past that time. So you have a lot of young mothers.
Yes.
Who don't even know about this, who
Yes.
let little girls hang out at
Yes.
service stations and
Yes.
go to the store, walk around and whatever it is. Some kind of way, parents
Yes.
have to be given an opportunity to hear things like this.
Yes.
And I know in the African-American community, our place is always the church. And so we do need to do things like this, because I see little girls, even in Schnucks, you just got kids just wandering around and nobody's paying any attention to them. And since I don't have any little babies and not hoping to have any soon, I'm not always thinking about
Yes.
what's going on when I see a kid there. But we need to get to these young moms about this.
Yes.
What about the Survivor Empowerment Center?
I guess before we answer that question, I guess SIH looks at it on a corporate level. I look at it on a more personal level. We may not have a place to send someone who's being trafficked, but we have the information to share and to maybe use, if we don't have a big corporate place to send them to, we have smaller locations. The Survivor Empowerment Center, I went to a workshop probably 4 or 5 years ago where it was on human trafficking. So just having the information and knowing what we know, you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who would be able to help individuals. So, it would be great to have a place here where we could send them that was more, I'll call it institutional.
Yeah.
But if you know somebody, just like the little girl walking down the street, it's our obligation as people to try to do something.
Amen.
Would Center for Empowerment be one place?
Yeah.
I didn't hear
The
that.
Center for Empowerment. You mean the Survivor Empowerment Center? He said
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Now, if they'll accept a child,
Their function
Rather than
is
just a-
sexual assault. And,
so
yeah.
any age.
you know, whether they will take a child without a parent, they can refer them to DCFS. Okay, so that's why us having the information is so important. Yeah. Okay, last question. Okay, last question.
Miss Olga.
I'm trying to pull them together.
Okay, two more and that's it. Okay.
The question I have is related to stigma against the trafficked girl especially, but if it were a boy too. Have you seen any evidence the families hold a stigma against the victim?
Generally, no, because, and again, if you come from a background of trauma, a lot of mothers have been traumatized, and then their children have been traumatized as well, but generally, no. And so as a society, we have to make sure that we as a society, when we see that little girl in Schnucks and she's half dressed, we have to make sure that we don't look at her and think negatively, because we don't know where she's come from. Yeah, so we don't know what the background, so we can make sure that we don't put a stigma on, you know?
The mayor's proclamation, which she has shared with us, that a successful response to human trafficking requires a coordinated community-wide effort. Every individual, family, and organization can contribute to enhancing human trafficking awareness, prevention, and response by learning to recognize the indicators of human trafficking. Every month or every other month, I get something when I contribute money to the police academy. I get safety tips. I'm sure you have I'm an action person.
Yes.
So I want to suggest to you, since you are a fellow, Edgar Fellow, and it's your challenge, how do we go about to help our city, all of us? This organization, AUW, the League of Women Voters, Rotary, Lions Club, we have so many, I belong to a number. The tips here are protect your home from burglary. Amaran can put us out with utilities. We don't all get our electricity from Amaran, but whatever the company is, there's public-private, involving public and private sector. So I would suggest, and I will be glad to start a project with your advice and consent and
Yes, ma'am.
guidance.
Yes, ma'am.
And we could put this, we could ask different companies to put it. The other thing that you brought out is change behavior. You want to influence behavior. So how, there's a Boys and Girls Club.
Mm-hmm.
They need to know. I talked to my daughter yesterday, we have a Zoom every Sunday, and I was telling her about this. And she said, Mom, I went to a bar, and when I went to the restroom, there was a little sign like this that said, hi, my name is Angela. Are you here with someone that you didn't think is the person who presented himself to you or herself through a profile, Facebook, whatever?
Yes.
And then it went on and asked these questions, and then we said, go to the bartender and ask for so-and-so.
Wow.
So there was, are you ready not to go home alone? I mean, we want to influence behavior because if they go to a bar, they'll have a few drinks, how they go. So there's something that we can do as an action.
Yes.
You can think of other
Yes,
places,
Yes.
but the utility company would be one. And please let us know where else we can do it. We'll
Yes.
think together and we'll help you.
Thank you, Ms.
You're
Olga.
Mhm. And widespread, as she said, going to individual businesses that have bathrooms that anybody can use. You've seen the signs if you travel in rest stops about human trafficking. We can do that locally.
Yes.
Yeah, so contacting local businesses would be a great start.
Yes. And to young people, because I think about it as a law professor, we've had law students who have been assaulted by other law students. One thing that I would say, if you have a drink and you leave it unattended for any period of time, do not go back to that drink. Also, I would advise people, don't hang out with other people and be getting drunk. Because now they could do things to you and record you while you are intoxicated. And you're thinking, oh, well, we go to school together, we're friends. You just don't know. And y'all, I'm telling you, these are things that I see right here in Carbondale. This is not New York, it's not Chicago, this is right here in Carbondale. So let's make sure that our children are making good decisions. When you're leaving Walmart and it's dark, you shouldn't be walking in your car while you're looking at your phone. If your car is next to a dark car, Walmart will send somebody out and let you walk to you. One of my law students just yesterday told me, I walked in my car and I was so afraid. There was this guy stalking me. I was like, why did you
Say something. This was just yesterday. And I told her, go back to Walmart, don't let this happen. And say, I need somebody to walk me to my car. I don't feel very comfortable. So these are some tips. Just be aware. And it may not be you, but you can share it with somebody else who can use this information to be safe.
We need a lot more time, don't we, for this? This is great. So Professor Page and Mayor Harvey and all our guests, Jamie Snyder, the city attorney, who had a lot to do with this. And we also have a representative from Congressman Boss' office with us tonight. You want to raise your hand right here, Kennedy, she's taking notes. So thank you for coming. I need to mention that our next month's meeting is open to the public. We invite all of you to come. It's February 11th at the African American Museum. And our own Dr. Anna Jackson, you want to raise your hand, is going to be doing the program about Black women's struggles, successes, and she's going to do it. You Don't Bother Me, I Can't Cope, the musical. So anyway, we're looking forward to that. So thank you very much. And we are officially closing the meeting because we appreciate Jennifer and the library hosting us, and they officially close at 8 o'clock.
But I'm gonna take 1 minute, 2 minutes. The mayor and I serve on the board for the Warming Center. This is the most brutal year we've ever had for our homeless to get them because of the weather. Our biggest fundraiser of the year is coming up, coldest night of the year. Please go online, just go to CNOY, register a team, help us raise funds to take care of these homeless people on our streets in Carbondale. It's a big deal. And people come from all over to our warming center in Carbondale. Thank you, appreciate it.